Good afternoon. How are you? Well, I can feel fall creeping up on us. Maples show the change in the colors, and I can feel a chill in the air, which is invigorating, not yet cold. And so we're approaching the change of seasons, and with that, we're approaching elections and things like that. Last night, I attended a 2-hour panel discussion about can we keep our republic, relying on the quote by Benjamin Franklin, who said, you have a republic if you can keep it, and that is the challenge today. I've collected writings by Jefferson since the time I was a kid, and I located a treasure trove in high school of letters he wrote to various people, and one of them was to a cousin who wanted to go into politics, and Jefferson told him to go to law school, and that was one letter that influenced me. But there were things that he said when I was a young man that didn't make sense to me, and one of them was his trust in democracy. But in my lifetime, I find that he's right, that we the people figure it out in a way that our institutions do not. And so there are probably really two curatives for a bad government. One is our First Amendment, and maybe that's why it's first, to throw sunlight on bad practices or ones that aren't working or not fulfilling the objectives we want, like equal justice for all, or each of us having a right to vote and so forth. The thing about Jefferson was he believed that if the people didn't get it right the first time, they would over time get it right. And being a young, anxious, somewhat cynical guy in the 60s, I was sure that he was brilliant, but I thought he was probably in error about this. But he was writing it in a letter, so it wasn't so much for publication, although he did make copies of all the letters he wrote. Well, last night during this panel discussion, one of the questions was about the people and their trust. And my response was that the people are, despite the fact of their distrust, fighting for the value that is America, equal justice under law, and democracy, not autocracy. And I gave as an example what I think is, for some political consultants, too complicated, but not for the people. For example, D.A. Vance decided that he could indict Trump based on the extraordinary prosecutors he had with long experience who presented him with the facts and a decisional point, and he went with it. But Bragg, who replaced before that document could be filed, that is the indictment naming Trump, he withdrew it and pulled back and didn't do anything. And for this, I still think that he should be investigated, because that's a decision that troubles me, particularly since, and this is why I revive it, particularly since James, the New York State Attorney General, Letitia James, has just charged in a civil case Trump and his family with basically stealing $251 million in various scams involving banks and taxes. And that was the basis of the case that D.A. Vance had commended to Bragg, that Bragg did not follow upon. Okay, so my point is not to score points on Bragg, but it is that the people got it. We the people, we understand it. And the elected representatives we have not only have fear, but they underestimate we the people. And being Irish, I've seen some examples of the Irish cancer, if you will, alcoholism, in the Bronx. Now, I've never had it myself, but I've known a lot of people who've gone through it, some successfully and some not. But it's very interesting, and whether you read it in literature or you observe it in your neighborhood, the Irish families I saw when I was a young man think they're the only ones in the world that know what's going on, and they can pretend to the community that there isn't an alcohol in the family. Now, in a lot of instances, without putting people to the task and saying, you know, we know that so-and-so is an alcoholic and you have this problem, people would help, which was interesting. They respected the dignity of the family. We can't do that with the politicians who act like the alcoholic family, believing they can tell us this bullshit and that we are going to be satisfied and that we don't know better. And what's the difference? The difference is that our destiny is entwined with whether or not we're a democracy or an autocracy. If a neighbor is an alcoholic, we may try to help, and many do. But it's not the same thing as a voter and a citizen being manhandled by those who represent us, supposedly to preserve and protect our government from Trump. Last night in the forum, one of the first speakers spoke about how is it that somebody wasn't on January the 7th summoning people, taking down their names and asking them what the hell they did. Exactly. And somebody said, well, Trump was still in office. Yes, but are you saying that we couldn't go to the Attorney General, we couldn't go to the Department of Homeland Security, that we couldn't go to any agency, that the FBI was not going to do anything about this, and that instead we were going to preserve our dignity by going after those who were the rioters directed by Trump and others to do what they did, instead of going to Trump himself and saying, what the hell were you doing? What were you thinking? Why didn't you stop this? Why aren't you in arms yourself? Aren't you a clear and present danger to the United States? And that's a fair question. And because that question was answered in the negative, meaning that nothing happened to any of them, we're in the situation now where we are concerned more generally about people ignoring the law. We question whether the 11th Circuit will issue the ruling that it did, that is consistent with the law and the facts. We are encouraged by the fact that the special master seems to be following a logical course, following the law, asking sensible questions of Trump, not being the sap as they would have him be by saying things out of the courtroom that should be said in the courtroom if they can be said true. But they lie out of the courtroom and they don't bring it in the courtroom. So in recent days, we've seen encouraging signs that our system is not beyond repair. Now, we have to watch it and scrutinize it every day. So the answer to last night was that we the people get it, and we're doing what we do. And in my entire lifetime, in every crisis that we've had during my lifetime, it's the people who bring the cause to the foot of the Capitol, the courthouse, the public square, and say, this has got to change. Enough is enough. And last night I got among other remarks I got, one fellow I went to high school with told me how he and his wife had signed 1,000 postcards to get people to vote. That's how we win. That's how we beat Trump, and that's how we'll beat him again. But I do not retreat from my idea that there should be a unified task force, as there are in DEA cases and other kinds of cases, that consist of the federal government, the state, and local, to get Trump. Yes, get Trump. Just the way Bobby Kennedy went after Jimmy Hoffa, that's what we should be doing with Trump. He is a menace, and he is getting stronger among a minority group in America, and we have got to go after him for his offenses against democracy, against us, the people. So, that's my thinking today. There are other issues we could talk about, but none as important, except perhaps the war. And we'll do that on another day. So, in the meantime, I am here in my cathedral of trees again, and I feel much better, although I regret the fact that the colors are changing. Bye-bye.